Yo, what's poppin'? Welcome to Bhroman Braapsody. This is where we review cars and motorcycles. I'm the host for your motorcycles and the punk does the cars. Today we are back at Motorcycles of Greensboro with Gennaro. Thank you for having us here.
Abra, welcome back. It's sure good to see you again.
Thank you. And guess what, you guys? This day just got even more beautiful. Look what we have here.
Straight from Bologna, Italy. It is the Ducati Monster.
Yes, sir. And in today's episode, we're gonna talk about the bike, show you some of the cool features, take it out on the road for a spin, share my thought with you guys, talk about the cost of ownership, and assign it a Bhromance score. So don't go anywhere. It's me, it's your boy Bro, and I am your Bhroman.
So, as we all know, Ducati is known for its performance-based motorcycles, all of its racing history, late 80s, early 90s, Ducati, and actually till this day, Ducati is kind of like the David defeating the Goliath when it comes to racing, right? Because they were just a small company in Bologna, Italy, defeating the likes of Honda and Yamaha. Can you imagine? I mean, wow. No matter how you take it and twist it and turn it, at whatever level you decide to compete, racing requires investment. And those investments had Ducati, I wouldn't want to say struggling financially, but you know, they were being challenged at the time. Well, an Argentine by the name of Miguel Galuzzi, now we're taking a world tour here. We're going from Germany last time to Italy this time. By the way, I'm paying homage to my other European friends.
And we are doing all of that from right here in Greensboro, North Carolina. At Motorcycles of Greensboro.
Yeah, it is the melting pot, isn't it?
We are in the US, a melting pot.
That's right. So Miguel Galuzzi noticed that there was a ongoing trend in the underground motorcycling phenomenon, I guess would you call it, for lack of better words, that was actually opposite of previous. Previously, motorcyclists were taking standard motorcycles and they were lowering the bars and, you know, lowering the front end, trying to get more performance out of it, hence the birth of the cafe racer. Well, the trend in the late 80s, early 90s that Galuzzi noticed was actually the opposite. It was taking a sport bike, taking the fairings off of it, taking the fancy headlights and putting a round headlight on it, and taking the clip-ons off of it and putting handlebars on that one, creating a more comfortable yet performance-oriented motorcycle. And I suspect that it was primarily because people were starting to travel longer distances, so they wanted to be a little more comfortable, more commuting was taking place, and also just some good old just twisty carving in the canyons of Southern California.
And yeah, I think people wanted to do everything that you could do with a motorcycle and yet not lose out on the power and performance of a sports bike, but be a little more comfortable rather than being all bent over, right?
Correct. Yeah, having that demanding position that the sport bike asked for. So with all that in the mix, Galuzzi designed a motorcycle that became and actually gave birth to what we know today as the naked motorcycle. And the name of for that naked motorcycle was the Ducati Monster.
Okay.
All right. So at the time, the Ducati Monster was a 90-degree V-twin air-cooled engine with some of the now iconic design elements. And for those people that wonder what iconic means it's timeless. The Ducati Monster has now joined the ranks of other timeless designs such as the Volkswagen Beetle, and the Mini Cooper, and the Porsche 911. I mean, who doesn't love that, right?
Yep.
Some of those design elements were obviously the exposed trailless frame.
And this is a signature Ducati styling element. The naked frame, and it has to be in that red. And not just any red. I call it the Ducati red.
And the Ducati red, that's a good one. I like that. Do you mind if I borrow that one?
No, please go for it.
Okay. That has now become an iconic design element for Ducati, which, by the way, has been complemented by many others in the form of copy.
Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. So
there
you go. It doesn't get any better than that.
It does not. Another one of the design elements that's really, really important and iconic now to the Monster is the humpback tank, and also the high tail end remnants of a sport bike.
Yes. And the single swing arm that you see on, I know it's not on every Monster, but like it's on this 1200, and on all of the sports bikes, you have that single swing arm. It just looks so badass and so cool.
It does. Well, and you know, anytime when you put a beautiful wheel, a beautifully machined and finished wheel on a motorcycle, you know, the single-sided swing arm just allows you the opportunity to show that wheel off, and it just kind of becomes part of the whole design of the motorcycle.
Yeah. You said the first Ducati came out, I think, in '93.
'93 was the initial launch of the Ducati Monster, which was
since it's been a phenomenon, right?
Oh, it really is, because you know the world was looking at bikes with fairings and aerodynamics and very distinct designs, and here comes this motorcycle, which is in itself was a very unique design, because it really just went backwards, kind of, in a way. Back then, the Ducati Monster was it had a 90-degree V-twin engine, which was air-cooled. We still have remnants of that original Ducati Monster in the Monster 797. Till this day, it is a air-cooled 90-degree V-twin. It grew up a little bit, in displacement and obviously in performance. And the fit and the finish is I'm sure the evolution of it has to be, time requires it.
Absolutely. You have more technology, more features. That's what the market demands.
That's right. In the new century, Ducati decided that, Ducati is always evolving, right? They're always looking to improve. So then the Monster went into a liquid-cooled engine, still a 90-degree twin. And the reason why the 90-degree twin is really, really important is because not only does it allow for some really, really good horsepower, fundamental part of the twin is the torque output, which allows for a rider to be able to really enjoy the acceleration even at low speeds and low RPM. I'm sure we'll get into those specs here in just a little bit, because that's your forte. I know you like those. So we went into a liquid-cooled motorcycle, and nowadays the 821 offers riders things like different riding modes. So all the electronics, all the creature comfort features are now incorporated. Anti-lock braking systems, traction control, cornering ABS. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, the engineering, that mindset that has to take place, that has to happen when you're sitting there and you're figuring out what ABS has to calculate for as you're leaning the motorcycle into a corner, and the diameter of the tire changes as the leaning angle either increases or decreases. With Brembo brakes, you definitely have plenty of stopping power.
How often do you get to stand next to an icon? And yes, Gennaro is an icon, but I'm talking about the Monsters. So I'm standing next to 3 icons. There you go.
Well, thank you, bro. You're very kind.
Gennaro is standing next to the 821 Monster, and I here have the 1200S.
Yes, you're standing next to the 1200S.
So the 821 is probably the CCs?
Yes.
Still is liquid-cooled, 6-speed?
6-speed, yes.
Liquid-cooled.
3 different riding modes. There are 8 different settings of traction control per mode. So, you can most certainly dial it in, give yourself the comfort of knowing that the electronics are working for you, creating a kind of a safety bubble, let's say. Knowing that you're not going to spin the back tire out, knowing that you're not going to lock up the front or rear tires because of the anti-lock braking system. So
and that's in a straight line or around corners.
Correct. Yeah, as we were mentioning, the cornering ABS.
821, although it's you might think, 821, 110 horsepower, 60 foot-pound of torque, weighs in the 450 range, I think.
Yeah, mid 400s.
Mid 400s. The 1200, it puts out about 150 horses, 90 foot-pound of torque, weighs about 500 pounds.
Yeah, the Ducati Monster is basically really just the motorcycle that's made for the average human being. Because, hey, we both know, you and I will never use not even 50% of the capacity of the capabilities of, let's say, a Ducati V4.
Yeah.
Even at the track. I mean, I know that I'm not anywhere close to the limit of that motorcycle. The beautiful thing about the Monster is I can actually use more of its capacity because it's not so extreme. It's more of a daily type rider. It's a commuter. It's, you could turn the Monster into just about anything you want. You accessorize it to fit your wants and needs and desires. You can go track day riding. Some Monsters have been raced at some of the club events. So, I mean, if you can envision it, the Monster can become that bike for you. You look at Ducati designs, they're just simply, for lack of better words, they're just simply sexy.
I cannot even disagree with you or even think about disagreeing with you. Thank you so much, Anaro, for all the information, the history that you gave us about this bike. Can you tell us a little bit about Motorcycles of Greensboro?
It's more so than just a motorcycle dealership. It's a place where enthusiasts can come and spend time together, enjoy some water, a cup of coffee or a Coke, and be surrounded by motorcycling buddies. Motorcycles, obviously, some of the sexiest ones I've seen. We're here just to basically either learn or share our knowledge. I think the last time we mentioned that within the walls of Motorcycles of Greensboro, there's a combined motorcycling experience of well over 300 years between master technicians here, riders like Paul, and just myself and Brian, the service manager. So there's a wealth of knowledge that people can either come and enjoy or actually add to.
I'll put the link in the video description below. Come check them out. They have BMWs, Ducatis, and a couple of other brands. If you come here, tell them the Bhromance sent you. They just don't sell motorcycles here at this dealership. They also sell all kinds of gear. You have helmets, gloves, jackets, liners, anything that you could think of. They have it, or they can get it ordered for you, I'm guessing.
Yes, exactly. An example is some of the beautiful Ducati apparel that's right behind me here on my right side.
Oh, do you know what time it is?
Yeah, let me check my watch. How's that?
Okay.
Hey, I think it's right o'clock.
Right o'clock, let's go! So 821 cc's, putting out about 109 horses, 63 foot-pound of torque. This has a 58-inch wheelbase, so it's compact. Check out the Ducati frame. It's got a monoshock suspension in the rear, liquid cool right there. And this has a 24-degree rake angle. What's the rake angle? So if you draw a perpendicular from the steering mount and then you follow the fork tube, that angle is the rake angle. Shorter the rake angle, the more nimble the bike is. Larger the rake angle, the more stable the bike is at highway speeds and such. On the top you have a trigger for the passing lights. This is your high beam, low beam. This is to go through the menu options, turn signals, and this is what you'd use to activate the menu screen. The horn at the bottom, the kill switch, and the starter and the hazards. On the top of the tank you have the 821 decal, and then this is a cool little throwback feature here as well. So you see it says lock on the top. Once you unlock it, that's how you can get the tank to swivel up. Your battery is underneath the fuel tank, and on the top you have the display screen to turn it on, turn the ignition on. You get that beautiful Ducati graphic there, and then on either side of the screen you have lights, and this is your main screen. You get a decent amount of information on the screen. You have the time, and then you have your digital tachometer, and this gives you what mode you're on. It gives you that side stand light. I have the kickstand on. Speedometer, what gear you're on, oil temperature, what levels of ABS and traction control do you have selected. Right now it says ABS 2, traction control 4. That's your fuel indicator, fuel range, average consumption. But that's not it. You can do a lot more things. You can access a lot more things. Press and hold this button, and that brings you to the screen. You have options for riding mode. You can select your display, set your pin code, lap timer, unit setting, date clock, service history, info, and tire setting. All right, so let's start off our ride with a couple of U-turns and see how this thing maneuvers. This thing has a small, short wheelbase, and look at it, it's so easy to go around and around in circles. Well, let's head on to our second test. Let's go and do the pull test. Let's put it in sport mode, riding mode, sport. It's fun. It's don't let its little size fool ya. It's quite powerful. It's quite powerful. So as for the wind protection, there is none. There is no fairing, windshield, none of that. So you get a lot of wind in your upper body, torso, legs, arms, everywhere. The seating position is actually quite comfortable. You are not leaning over the handlebars. You're sitting up quite upright. The foot pegs aren't too bad. My legs aren't bent weirdly. I'm 5'10" with a 31-inch inseam, and I'm quite comfortable here. It is a bit of a compact riding position, but it's a bike that can do some aggressive riding, so having a compact riding position makes complete sense to me. You feel the lightness of this bike. This is a very, very light bike. You can flick it around all day. Like this is the very definition of a bike being nimble, in my opinion. This is short and nimble and light. By short I mean the wheelbase. This has, I think, a 31-inch seat height, but it's not bad. It's not a bad seat height. It's quite nice and comfy. I'm quite comfy here. So let's go. Yeah, you feel the bumps. We're in touring mode, and we went over some tracks, and I did feel the bumps. I sure did. The brakes are the Brembo brakes, and they are amazing. Yeah. We're stopped at a red light now. I'm 5'10", 31-inch inseam, easily flat-footed at both sides. Not a problem at all. The balance on these things are amazing. This is so well balanced. This really is. Now, is this a bike that you could use for commuting? Yeah. This bike does not have a huge wheelbase. It's quite light. It's very nimble. It doesn't have saddlebags or anything like that. So as long as you have a backpack, yeah, you can do some commuting on it, and you could be commuting in style and be happy when you get to work. Even if you show up to work on a Monday, you'll be like, haha, I rode my Ducati and I'm happy. Now, is this a bike that you could do long distance touring with? No, this is not a touring motorcycle. You could probably knock out a couple of hundred miles on it easily, but this is not a touring motorcycle, so you can't really go long distance touring on it. But you can get around, run some errands, you do a couple of 100 miles maybe, and you'll be just fine. Now I would advise that if you decide to go touring on this bike, get the taller windshield, get a windshield that'll block a lot of wind. Is this a beginner bike? Well, not exactly. Well, starting off, it's a Ducati, and Ducatis aren't the best beginner bikes in my opinion. They have a lot of power. They cost a pretty penny, and yeah, I mean you don't want all that power as a beginner. So yeah, not a very good beginner bike at all. Now, if you have been riding for a few years, maybe 2 years, a couple of years, and you wanted to get a Ducati, yeah, this could be a good intro into the Ducati multiverse. The Ducati multiverse, like the Avengers. Yeah. So this is the part where I'd say let's head back to the punk and wrap up this video. But I was told by the producers that the punk is still MIA. I don't know what's up with the punk. Oh well, let's talk about the cost of ownership, shall we? This motorcycle requires a service, the first service at 600 miles, and then the services are at a 9,000 mile interval or 1 year, whichever comes first. The service at your local Ducati dealer should cost you about $450. Then the tires, so the tires should last you about 7,000 miles or so. Depending, it all comes down to how you ride it. The more aggressive you ride it, the sooner you're gonna have to replace them. And the set of tires would cost you about 600. So over a 2-year period, assuming you ride 5,000 miles a year, you would need 2 services and a set of new tires. That's a total of $1,500 divided by the number of days. It's about $2 a day. Let's assign it a score, shall we? So on the looks, it's an 8.5 out of 10. On the Braap, it's an 8.5 out of 10. On the maintenance, it's a 7 out of 10. And on the comfort, it's a 7 out of 10. For a combined Bhromance score of 7.75 out of 10. The Ducati Monster 821, well, you might think it's a baby Ducati, but it's not. It still packs a punch. It's a lot more comfortable than the Ducati sports bikes, or any sport bike for that matter. It has a lot of grunt, it's very nimble, it's very light, it's a fun bike to ride. Well guys, keep your knees in the breeze, and I'll see you next week. Bro out.